Greetings everybody and welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going to be talking about the new entry and exit system, the EES, that is being used in the Schengen area here in Europe in order to track the folks who are entering Europe and leaving Europe. Before I do, let me remind you that every Sunday we get together online and we have a question and answer period, and sometimes we just talk about things that are important to us, and I'm saying you, the viewer, are able to interact with Justin and myself and other people. And to do that, if you want to join us on Sundays, go to our Patreon page, join our Patreon group, and then you can talk directly to us. So if you have questions or comments that you want to make directly to our faces, you are welcome to do that every Sunday. If you like what we're doing and you want to support us, that's the absolute best way to do it. So let's jump into the EES. I want to be clear from the very beginning that in this video, we're distinguishing between the ETIAS system, which is going to be a pre-approval for visa entry into Europe, as opposed to the entry and exit system, EES, which is only tracking who's coming and who's going. Those two systems are completely different, and they're not even both in operation at the moment. The ETIAS system, which will give or deny pre-approval for visas to enter and stay in Europe, is not yet in effect. It's been pushed back, as far as I can tell, until next year again. What we're talking about here is what is currently active, the entry and exit system, EES, which went into effect in Europe in April of this year. All this does is replace paper stamping of passports. So it used to be that when you came to Europe, you would hand over your passport. The border control officer would hold up that passport, compare it to your face, ask you maybe why you're visiting, how long you intend to stay. And then he or she would stamp your passport, the paper part of it, and hand it back to you. You'd go about your business. Now, as an American, you're allowed to come here for a set amount of time and just do your thing and leave. You don't need a reason to be here. Other countries, you need a visa in order to come. But for the Americans, that's all you had to do. The difficulty in that was that it was very difficult for the government to keep track of anybody who stayed longer than their visa allowed. So let's say you came here on a 90-day visa like an American, and you stayed past that for, I don't know, 9 months. The government had no way to know if you were still in the country, if you'd left, if you went and got a job. Passport control had no idea. So it was a mess, and they came up with this system where now you go to a queue and you can either meet with a customs official or border control official right there at the boarding gate, or you can do it at a terminal, one of these kiosks, and you scan your passport. It takes a picture of your face, a biometric picture, and it takes 4 fingers. It takes 4 of your fingerprints together. It enters that in the system, and all it does is log that on this day at this time you entered a Schengen country. That's it. That's all it does. Now, it will know, like for instance, if you're an American, that you have a 90-day tourist visa. At the end of the 90 days, the government will get a warning and says, hey, this person, let's say it's you, this person has now been here longer than 90 days and they need to be gone. So at that point, they're probably going to start looking for you. Now, that would be like an optimal position for the government, that they would start looking for you. The truth is, it's not going to be just that easy. But people who overstay their visas will be noted. Because it's done electronically, there won't be any of this, well, but maybe the guy didn't stamp it properly. Maybe the lady didn't enter it in the computer. Man, they're not going for that nonsense anymore. When you leave Europe, once again, you will use your 4 fingerprints. They will compare your face and log you as leaving, and that's it. That's done. If you are coming to Europe, I'm primarily speaking to the American audience, but this applies to everybody. If you're coming to a Schengen country legitimately, legally, with a valid passport, then the EES system really means nothing to you. It, honest to God, does not. It is not connected to a criminal database. It's not checking to see if you are on a wanted list. Excuse me. It is checking to see if you're on a travel ban, but it's not checking to see if you have a criminal record. It's not doing that. Somebody would have already had to put out a red notice with Interpol. According to EU officials, 44,000 people have already gotten flagged with red notices or traveling with fake documents or overstaying their visas. So they're claiming that the system works. And that's out of like 110 million people who have entered Europe since the system started. So it's a really, really, really small number. I say again, because I want to emphasize it. If you are traveling on legitimate documents for legitimate reasons, you're not going to have a problem entering, and it is not connected to a criminal database. So that brings up the question, well, what about those folks who might be on a registry in the United States? Under the International Megan's Law, most of these folks have to give 21-day notice before coming to Europe. And of course, the Americans notify Schengen countries that, hey, this person is on a registry in the United States, they're coming your way. That doesn't seem to affect the EES at all. In July 2026 and even in June 2026, we had folks who were, Patreon members of our organization who have successfully entered Europe, and there was not a problem. In a couple cases, they got pulled aside for a few minutes of questioning, but it was really just, why are you here? Why did the Americans send us this notice? Why should we care? And they were all let in anyways. There were no rejections. Now, doesn't mean that's going to be true in every case, but in these folks' cases, they were allowed to enter, and the EES didn't stop it, and the border control officers didn't stop it. They let them right in. So that is not going to be a problem for those folks who are on the registry. If you were going to be allowed into Europe before EES went into effect, you're still going to be allowed in. And if you were not going to be allowed in before EES, you're probably still not going to be allowed in. So of course, it comes to your individual situation. But I'm going to emphasize for the third time, because I want to be crystal clear on this. The EES is not tied to a criminal database. They are not checking to see if you have a criminal history. They are only interested in when you're arriving into Europe, who you are, and when you're leaving. That's it. Now, of course, if you have a visa, if you've been granted a visa before coming to Europe, well, that visa would override your 90 days. That information would be entered right into the system. The same would also be true if you came to Europe. I'm going to say Germany, where I live. If you came into Germany on a 90-day electronic tourist visa and you decided to get a job and you asked for permission to stay from the German government, that's also going to be entered into the system by the Ausländerbehörde, the foreigners office here. So if your situation or your status changed, that will be entered into the EES. Keep in mind that this is completely independent of the ETIAS system, which will do some minor background checks, but that's not in effect at the moment, and it looks like it won't be till next year. I do want to point out, because if you're planning on traveling this year, it's important for you to know at some airports here in Europe, there have been massive delays, massively long waiting lines to get entered into the EES system, whether it's with the kiosk or with a person. Scanning fingerprints, taking a picture, scanning your passport. Let's say it takes 30 seconds for each person. If all of a sudden we're talking about 300 people need to get on a plane or are getting off the plane, 300 times 30 seconds is a lot of time. There have been some massive delays at smaller airports. There don't seem to be any delays at the major airports, just the smaller ones. And in those situations, it's become such a problem that some airlines, such as Ryanair and Lufthansa, have actually petitioned the EU Parliament to say, hey, you got to stop this at least during the summer rush. And they're trying to push it back until September. If you're traveling to a major airport, and by a major airport, I mean Amsterdam, Copenhagen, Frankfurt, Munich, Zurich, you're not going to have a problem. Those airports are not reporting any delays. So the more you know, the better off you're going to be. And that is the latest information that we have on entering Europe as of today. So if you're planning on coming to Europe, please try to come to a major airport, not one of the small ones. Make sure your papers are legitimate. Make sure you have a good reason to be here, and just do things honestly. Answer the questions honestly from border control. We've not, anybody who has told the truth to the police so far has not had a problem. So I'm going to wish you safe travel if you're traveling here in the summer, and if you're traveling in fall, it might be a little easier for you at the smaller airports. So stay safe, be smart, and if you're not happy with your situation wherever you are, do something about it. If need be, do something radical about it. Until next time, my friends, be safe, be good. Cheers.